Again, thank you all for coming out tonight. It's always nice to see some fresh new faces. How many of you have been to these before? Yeah, okay, so that's awesome. How many new? Okay, well, welcome. And so the way we set this up is basically to showcase Gainesville as a great environment for the entrepreneur minds and young people out there to start their companies and foster the great ideas that people have and to be able to take them and launch them and remain right here in Gainesville. So we like to take a local entrepreneur and showcase kind of the background and the genesis of kind of what drives their success. And Leah is a great prime example of exactly what we're trying to showcase here. So the way the program works, maybe you've been through this before, but I'll ask several questions kind of starting from the very beginning. Kind of going through the storyline, if you will, of the ups and downs, the twists and turns that most companies take. And so we'll learn about that, some of the struggles and some of the high points. And then we'll reserve about 15 minutes for questions and answers. So if you have a question, just keep it in mind that there will be an opportunity at the end for you to be able to ask us anything. And to Quan's point, there are a lot of folks like myself here in Gainesville who've had many successful businesses and are here as a resource for you. So please always do not hesitate. I've got business cards as well. We're live streaming tonight, and so that offers for those folks as well. So we're excited to get another Startup Talks kicked off. And while Signet is kind of the host here, there are a couple other folks. The startup folks are important. Quan and his team and Aaron, but also Infinite Energy is our sponsor. So your food and drink tonight is sponsored by Infinite Energy, and we want to be able to give them certainly a shout out for their appreciation. And they've been with us from the very, very beginning. So with that, we spoke for just a few minutes. We've never met, I don't think. We've both been here for a long time. And that was a pause for the number of years. And so it was fascinating because it's what you have done, and I read your bio, is very, very exciting. And the first thing that comes out, I have to just share with you, the first thing that comes out about Leah is her passion for what she does. And I hope you'll speak to that tonight, because I think that's kind of the genesis, if you will, for a lot of ideas. People get really passionate about certain things and wanting to change certain aspects. It could be high-tech, low-tech, biotech, and so forth. But all the inventions that are out there and people's companies that start and the entrepreneurial mind typically is wrapped around something that you're passionate about. So anyways, I spoke with you a little bit about the program and how we kind of evolve into the evening and our 1+ hour or so interview that we have. It's a very comfortable fireside chat, living room style conversation. And so what I'd like for you to do is just kind of take a few minutes and tell everyone a little bit about who you are, your family, and a little bit about Leah.
Hi, everybody. I'm an Alabama native, and I think I'm the last of that generation that was sort of raised by the grandmother who lived down the street. So I think that had a lot to do with how this all came into play, not intentionally, but being a Southern girl and having grandmother with the garden and the pickling and the sewing and all that, that was how I was raised because she lived so close by. And so I learned all that kind of inside scoop on that good old-fashioned like home ec type stuff, and they don't, that's not really happening anymore. So I feel really lucky to have had that wonderful sort of really nurturing type upbringing. It was never like pushed on me, but I absorbed so much good stuff about how things work for food and gardening and all the stuff, crafting and the whole stuff. So that's not what I thought I'd do for a living, but I was in there, organically in there. So I went to Auburn University and then I got a master's at Alabama in anthropology. And this was in the 80s, and wanted to be an anthropologist. My first job was in South America. I got to do what I always thought I wanted to do. I did that for a few years, and it just didn't fulfill me. So I was thinking like it doesn't feel all that great, but I didn't really know. You put all that money and time into school, so I was going to stick with it. But I came to Gainesville, met a girl in Caracas, Venezuela, who lived in Gainesville, and that changed everything. Came to visit her and was like, I just knew, like a lot of us, you come here to visit somebody, and I just literally resigned, and that day luckily fell into a job so I wasn't just standing here going, I don't want to do. Somebody actually offered me a job while I was here. Stayed, that was in the early 90s, and did another, was teaching at the time. Did that for a few years, and that was really exciting, but it wasn't that inner passion thing. And I am a rule breaker and a real rebel when it comes to how I like things done. So I don't really work well within the system of being led by someone else. I have a natural tendency to want to do it a little bit better and push the envelope a little harder. So driving home one day, driving home from teaching school, you know how we all do this, you kind of think about, ideas, and I don't know, that particular day I was thinking like this isn't fulfilling what else is out there, and I had this vision of sort of, I don't know, people that were, all happened just, I don't know, I remember the specific moment driving down 441 and saying, there's all these people stuck in all these buildings, and they have to stop what they're doing at lunch hour, get in the car and go drive somewhere. In the 90s, there was only really Wendy's in a couple of places. There wasn't really any delivery. There was no 35, there was nothing delivered unless you got pizza. In the daytime, that wasn't really even an option. So I literally just had the idea, quit my job. I do things like that. I quit that day, and that was a Friday, and on Monday went and got a license and said, well, if nobody's doing it, I'm going to do it. And that was the beginning of it. So it started with just pure, there's an opportunity here to go to a company that maybe has 100 or maybe 30 or maybe 500 employees. At that time, there was a lot of industry on 441, and that was where I was driving. Knock on the door. Hi, everybody. Does anybody want lunch delivered so you don't have to go anywhere? All hands came up. I just knew, and it was an immediate success.
And what year was that? Ish?
95.
95, okay.
Yeah. I don't know where the spirit to just walk in the door and not feel like that was a weird thing to do, or not really have any knowledge of how it was going to work out came from. And I was just telling Mitch a while ago, I think that just lack of fear of taking that risk was the big thing for me. It came out of, I wasn't the most self-confident, 30-year-old girl.
So your cooking skills. So first of all, she owns Celebrations Catering, so we didn't really set that up very well.
Okay.
So it's a service to businesses and weddings, and I'm not married. Are you going to do my wedding if I get married? Mm-hmm. You will. Mm-hmm. So Celebrations Catering, which you'll talk more about and what you do and how you present and so forth. But I'm I have a big question mark on my head. So you just quit, and like I have cooked for myself forever, right? But like, how do you know that your cooking is going to be good enough for everyone else?
I didn't know.
How did you know menu?
I feel like who can screw up sandwiches? Like I started out as small, and I thought, well, I can do sandwiches and twice baked potatoes and things that people eat. And actually, I was vegetarian at the time, so I said, I'm going to try to get people healthier. That was one of my motivations, and so that did not go over well. I will tell you, in 1995. I went door to door, and everybody's like, nope, nope, nope. But when I started offering ham and barbecue, sales skyrocketed. So I had to adjust. They told me what they wanted, and this was for a long time. I knew that in order to be successful, I was going to have to compromise some things I wanted and do some things about what they wanted. I would do things differently now, and we now do still 10 or 20% vegetarian. But at the time, vegetarian was not in Gaines as friendly as it is now. There weren't as many people, and nobody wanted to be healthy either. So I had to adjust my business model, but they told me, we'll order if you'll do this, this, and this. And by that time, I needed a computer and a van and all this stuff, so I was just basically doing whatever they wanted to do to try to keep my head above water. And it developed into Celebrations Catering. My first company was called the Light Brown Bag Lunch Company, and it was a vegetarian lunch delivery, healthy, sprouts and hummus type sandwiches and apple sandwiches and things, and everybody's like, really? I mean, I would go to places and they would just not, there'd be one girl in the corner, you know, so that was not going to make a living for me. It might now, but it didn't then.
So, okay, so you started by yourself, with yourself. What about a commercial kitchen? Anything like that? Was it a home?
No, I rented a little kitchen. It was 500 square feet in
Okay.
High Springs, where real estate was cheaper.
Yeah.
And I, you know, maxed out my 2 or 3 credit cards and had a few $1,000s. I borrowed this, a couple of family members. You know, it was kind of touch and go there for the first couple years, but business grew immediately, and it didn't grow because of the sandwiches, and it didn't grow because of the barbecue. It grew because of people were so glad to have something brought to them. And this was the days when computers were just getting started. There was no cell phone.
Right.
So I literally had a box of index cards in my car, in my Volvo, which was at that time 10 years older than. Anyway, I kept a card box there, and I just hash marked. I stopped at Energizer Battery. I got 50 lunches dropped off. And I'd stop at the next bank and drop 12 off. I'd stop at the radio station, and they get 3. I'd stop. And so I literally would.
These
I had to get all.
pre-ordered, or you show up and?
Yeah,
it's-
yeah, they were all
okay.
pre-ordered. So I'd go a week ahead. Here's the menu for the month, and then they would send me. Here's what I think we were using the phone like it was old school back then.
Right.
But I didn't have time to do it. You know, lunch hour's only like an hour, hour and a half.
Right.
And I got to make this huge loop down 441 all the way around to Shands, the VA hospital, back and back up to High Springs, and be back around 2 o'clock to start prepping for the next day's order. So it was pretty intense. But I decided real quickly that I'd just bill them I'd add up all the hash marks at the end of the month and go, you owe me $400, you owe me $33, and then I'd pick it up and I go have it on an envelope on the desk because I got to grab it, drop the lunch, and get on in the car and back to the next place.
Right.
So that grew, and then they asked for more stuff, and they're like, hey, can you do breakfast? How about you come this weekend? Can you do something that turned into weddings, the whole thing? I changed the name of the company, and we.
So before we get there, let's take a little pause, because I want to go back and when you were talking, and one of the risks we run when you were so engaging in the conversation. We were here for close to an hour. I was like, I don't want to have this interview now because I want to ask you later, but you had told me about your parents and your grandparents and all that. I think it's really important. So if you can share that same story with the same, yeah.
I can because it's something that really drives me.
Right.
I came from a very traditional, old school Alabama family that was, both my parents went to college, and I was going to go to college, but nobody ever asked me really what I wanted to do. My father was a civil engineer. My mother was a nurse. My grandparents all had professional jobs where they worked the same job from age 20-something until they retired. Both of my parents did that too. They slaved themselves into a miserable person. And I watched that as a kid saying, this does not look fun. And even though I knew my dad really loved engineering, I never saw him like really happy and giddy about it. And he would come home, he was tired, and you know the picture. So he stayed there till the end, and retired. And I just thought, well, I just had more creativity than that. So I didn't say I'm going to go start a catering business, but I knew that wasn't going to be it. So I thought traveling and digging and anthropology would be fun. And
Right.
But it turns out that I needed some of that. I think that repulsion to that was a lot of the reason I became an entrepreneur. I was like, not only do I not want to do the same thing for 30 years, here I am doing it for 20, so I can't really say that, but it's not the same. I'm not working for the guy. I'm not putting money in a pension thing that's like, taking my 2 weeks vacation to Disney World. That doesn't turn me on.
Do you think that, so anymore delivery services are very common, and you've been a part of startups that have Eat the 80s as an example and so forth, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But do you think that you basically had the monopoly, if you think about it?
For a long time.
For a long time, right.
10 or 12 years I had the monopoly.
Do you think that, is that a better environment for you and your
No.
customers? It's better to have healthy competition.
Yes.
Okay.
It keeps me on my toes. It keeps my team excited because even today they'll say, look what I saw on Instagram, or who did this? That used to be my customer. So it keeps us, for sure, fired up. Plus it's good and healthy. I mean,
Right, sure.
it's not, we don't get bored.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer in that. I just wanted to I don't know of is any business that I've been associated with where we just literally had the monopoly on something. I mean, we actually, one of our companies has a program that measures the efficiency of compiler technology. Is very, very sophisticated and is the best of the best. But I can't think of anything where you've really cornered the market. Like like you did for.
You don't know what,
Yeah.
you know how it is, guys. You
Yeah.
don't know what's tomorrow. The wedding industry
Right.
changes. The Food Network does something and
Right.
everything changes. It's constantly keeping abreast of,
Right.
you know.
It's got to be exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
So,
changes constantly.
okay, so you have this, and how do you grow? What's the next, what do you morph into after you've started and you got one van? How many vans do you have now?
12.
12 vans.
12 vehicle payments and lots of car insurance and lots of gas. And we just got a brand new one. I love it when we get a new one. It's so pretty for about 3 days. First day, backed into a fence, and now it has a huge V in the rear end. And we haven't even put the sticker on it yet. You just have to let
That's
that go,
real
because
life,
that's
yeah.
going to happen. There are a lot of young people driving our cars. So how do you grow is the question.
So how did you grow?
How do I grow?
So you,
Demand was serious, so I couldn't keep up with it. So I was hiring, I was learning how to hire, learning how to do payroll, learning how to manage people, and growing with that constantly because it was just intense. And you know, the niches that came up I wasn't expecting, but the medical industry was huge back then, and drug reps had a lot of money to spend on whining and dining doctors, and there wasn't a law against it back then. So I had a lot of people just handing me their Amex going, I need to spend $3,500 this week, do something, here's my list of doctors. So I was like, oh, holy cow. And that was a big way, that was in the beginning, so I had to learn really fast. And there was no time for sitting around trying, I just immersion, you know. But I opened, in all of this, I've opened 5 or 6 different restaurants and other businesses. And I get excited, I get overexcited. I want to try something new, and I want to make sure I'm not getting bored. So I do things for a few years, and then I go, I don't like the way that feels, or I do it, and there's not a good relationship with the person I'm leasing the building from, or there's not a good relationship with the customer base that ends up getting created, and so I back out. But catering is so, catering can be whatever you want it to be, because I know a lot of you guys, do you mind if I explain this? Because catering is not, it's this thing, it's this word it's become, but Publix caters and Carrabba's caters, and so does Panera Bread. But what we do is, you know, over the years it started with some linen napkins, and somebody saying to me, I was at a big factory, and they were having some people come from Israel, and they said, we need this spread, and we need it perfect, and we want it to look beautiful. And do you have some stuff you can kind of fancy it up? So I go to the party rental place, I grab some stuff, and I'm like, holy cow, I'm paying $1 to rent this. It costs 77 cents to buy. So I go order myself 100 of them, and then now I have 17,000 square foot of warehouse of stuff. And the stuff became the demand for going, okay, if I'm going to bring the food to you for whatever event, and it can be, you know, a 3-day conference, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, coffee breaks, and everything in between, all the tables and chairs, the sound system, the lights, the whole thing, or it can be 20 box lunches going to a quiet little event. So there's all of that's catering and everything in between, but what it turned into is me answering the demand for, I don't have time to do anything, just do it all. And so they would say, here's my agenda and here's my budget, make it happen. I don't really want to talk to you again. I want to show up, and I just need it handled. So for me, that was a huge challenge, but I loved it because it was like, now I'm in control of everything. Because what we found in the food business, which is what I started out just in food, is if I was part of the machine of that 3-day conference, the sound guy was going to be late. He wasn't going to have the right number of extension cords. The people that were supposed to bring the flowers got there, and the flowers were the wrong color. They were short one, and one table didn't have them. Or somebody was supposed to print the invitations, and they got the wrong information or something misspelled on it. So I was the one standing there in the uniform running this event that got blamed for all of that. And I wasn't standing for that. So I was like, wait a minute, I'll take the flower contract, I'll start doing flowers, I'll start doing this. And so we added all this stuff over the years so that we could control the environment of the customer. And the goal for us was, and it started out as, you know, hummus sandwiches, but it ended up very quickly in, if I can just make the customer happy by letting them be in the room getting ready, like Paul and Kwang were just now, they're in there getting ready for that. They're not worrying about all of this other stuff because they've got dependable people doing it. We became the group with all the stuff so that you could just get ready with your PowerPoint or whatever you had to do, and we could handle all that other stuff. Not everybody wants us to handle everything, but we highly encourage that they just hand it over. So they've got one point of contact and one company handling the whole thing. And if I listen to the customer and I really know what you need. It may not be what you say you need, but if I really listen, and that was something I learned early on, that was the key to everything, is you didn't even tell me you needed flowers, but I brought some. You didn't tell me that you needed those extra trash cans to go outside because you've got 1,200 box lunches we got to throw away in a minute, and it's going to heap over and be everywhere. Like I would intuit that and go, bring it, and I might have to bring it free the first time because they would refuse to listen to my guidance. But once I got it in the building and they realized it, then the next time they would pay for it. And so I use that method to grow my business all the time. Is anticipating their needs before they did.
Yeah. So a couple things. First of all, I don't think I mentioned, but we've had one other female entrepreneur with us, and you're our second. We're so excited about that. So we have some women in the group, and I would like for you to express what it's like to be a woman in business. I mean,
I don't think I know. I don't
you've
think
been doing this for 22 years, okay? So that's remarkable, and just in itself. And so there's a lot of activity of young entrepreneurs, both men and women, and it's just exciting to see somebody so passionate and so successful. There's got to be some inspiration that you can tell these young women.
Honestly, when you're asking me that, I don't, Mitch, I guess I never thought of it as I was a woman and other people are, I just thought, this is what I want to do, I'm going to go for it. And I don't think I had any huge roadblocks because I was a woman. I don't think I was in Gainesville ever, nothing, I think I could have been a man. I don't think it mattered so much. I think, I like representing the female population. I like being a good role model to other women, and we're a female predominant company because women tend to do better at flowers and draping and all that kind of fussy stuff, and even cooking. So many times I've had my business is probably 80-90% women. So in that, there's a joy in fulfilling that, and I've seen a lot of women come in as a dishwasher, a cook, and move up to general manager. That happens a lot. So women tend to really imbibe this sort of taking care of people nature. So that's been really cool. And I've become I don't have any children, so I've become the mother to all these 50 people. And that's something that I really enjoy, nurturing them. But in business in general, I don't think it impacted.
So you took a little bit of a detour with starting some restaurants, and one of them in particular that I mentioned to you earlier was on 23rd Avenue and Main Street, which we literally used to drive clear across town. I had a company over in the Butler area, and
I can't believe you do that.
Oh
That's
yeah,
so far.
Absolutely. We literally did about once a week, and we had about 25 employees at the time, and we loved I was telling you, the crab bisque soup was off the chart good. But tell me about, so everything seems to be going wonderful on the catering side. Why would you go into the restaurant side of things?
All of them have been for different reasons. The first one was try to force people to be vegetarian, which doesn't work.
Okay.
And then I quit fighting it and quit that. Then the next one was I kept having people knock on my catering door at the next location. I moved into Gainesville after a couple years to enlarge the kitchen space on Main Street, and people would just knock and say they'd had something. Could they just get a little bit of it? Could I just have a little salad? You know, when you made these sandwiches for us and they were really good, or that lasagna, do you have a pan of that sitting around? Like, it was bizarre, but they just wouldn't leave us alone. So I quadranted off a little piece of it and turned it into a restaurant. But catering was just growing so fast. It was hard to sell an $8 to $12 item when you can sell a $1,200 item, and it was just and be done with it in an hour. So, and people sitting around talking and taking up space. So I was thinking we need this for production space. So I did that for a few years, and then the place you're talking about, Celebrations Cafe, which was the third place. Someone that I knew had that building, and that's what usually happens. That's a real key point, is that someone you know. Because everybody's rooting for you, and you develop these friends and these customers who really love what you do, and they would say, I've got this space and I've got this, come look at this. And so everything else I've done has come from that avenue. So somebody said, I've got this space, Hardee's was there, they'd closed down, it was just sitting there. He's like, just go down there, and And you guys, this is a really cool part, is that I never had, you know, $80 or $100,000 sitting in my bank account. It's the food business. We don't get that rich to go, I'll just go remodel a Hardee's building and invest in opening a whole new business. And then you'd think it costs 80, it costs 180 just to get started. And then $500,000 by the time you get going. It's incredibly how much money goes into getting things ready for code, for Gainesville's inspections. But that building, a guy just said, come on in there, pay me when you can. And that's happened to me several times, so I totally believe in that. Just karma of inviting angels into your life that want to help you, that believe in what you're doing. So I encourage all of you, when you're passionate and you're doing what you love, people notice it and they want to be part of it. And a lot of people have money and time and buildings and things they want to offer you. It's happened to me probably 6 or 8 times in my career. So at that time, somebody offered that building. I went down, remodeled it, and I actually at that time took on a partner, said, "You run it, because I don't want to be down there doing that." So he did it for a few years, and then someone came along and wanted to buy it and turn it into a pizza place, and it was good money. So I was like, you know what, this isn't fun for me, and I don't really like partnerships either. So he sold it to a pizza place, and then he moved across town to something else. Well, that was that phase, and then twice, 3 times more that's happened to me, where people go, oh, I've got this building, and you know, you go there and you kind of get inspired and get excited, and you dump some more money and some more time into it. You do it for a few years. And so we also had the Soul Shack and Cafe C. And Cafe C was a fun one. I did that for 10 years, and it was awesome. I tried to sneak some vegetarian food in there. Again, nobody wanted it. And so
Are you vegetarian now?
yeah, I'm mostly vegan.
I was thinking maybe I converted you.
And I just saw that the place on 13th, the Indian, the Krishna place closed, and I'm like, it's so hard to believe that Gainesville seems like the perfect spot for that, but we have such a hard time keeping vegan and vegetarian places open. So, you know, I've looked at, like, I don't know, a dozen places to do that again, because I think, well, maybe this time, or maybe we're ready now. But for now, in June I closed 2 restaurants just because I was just one day just done with it. It's a lot of stress. It's restaurant business versus catering. With a restaurant, you have to be open at the hours that you post every day, whether it's rain or shine or hurricane, or the manager shows up or not, or the place. I mean, the cooler's always down and the air conditioner's always broken, and there's always something clogging up the toilet, and it's just this constant stuff. So I'm done with that, and I just made a decision last year to close both restaurants because it was time to renew another 10-year lease. And I'm like, I can't commit to that. It's not happy anymore. So that also having the power to go, I'm just not, it doesn't thrill me anymore. But catering, on the other hand, what I call catering, which is really event planning and event production now, is you have actual weekends where there's no parties and you can go take off, and nobody's going, or you can just put a big X on a 5-day period and go, we're not booking anything, everybody let's go to the beach. That freedom, super attractive. And some days are really busy and it's fun. You're throwing parties, for God's sake. It's not like, you know, we're not roofing. We're having fun. So if you think about that when you get up in the morning, is how many celebrations are we a part of today? How many lives are we going to make simpler? How many weddings? How many 50th anniversaries? How many office parties? Whatever. Is you get to be a part of that. So it's always thrilling, exciting. So the thing that, Mitch is a little off subject, but saying that it's constant gratification, that's also how it grew, because you get to feel, unlike an architect who has like a project where he has to draw it for 2 years, then bid on it, and they don't even want it, and you just spent 3 years working on something that's going in the trash. I couldn't do that. I need that constant, like, that was awesome. Can we do that again next Thursday? Like, that feels really good. So we have a lot of people that do every Monday, every Thursday, every month, every year. So I've had customers that I've done 3 of their kids' weddings, all their bar mitzvahs, all of their Christmas parties. And so you develop this family that constantly, wherever you run into them, go, you're so awesome, that was so good. And you're just like.
Share the story about how disappointed you were about the photos today, about the picture of what you produced. And you went out, you told them to take pictures, you took pictures of the food instead of the people?
That is about the people, guys, don't forget that. I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
We were making an awesome paleo, beautiful, meat, hearty, kale salad, deviled egg thing today. This morning I saw it in the kitchen being produced, and someone was piping avocado spread into the deviled eggs. It just looked really pretty. And so I caught it. I'm going to take a picture of that. And then I noticed these sweet potato hash being made with ground turkey. I'm not a meat eater, but still looked really good. And then this kale salad had 12 different kind of beans in it, and they were massaging the kale, and I was like, wow, that looks really good. I will take a bowl of that. And I was looking at all this food, and it just looked so nourishing, like back 20-something years ago when I said I love feeding people really good food. I took pictures of all the food, and I said, where's this go? Who's eating all this? Like, who's this for? It's for Gainesville Health and Fitness, for the training team. We do a monthly meeting for them, and I'd forgotten it was Tuesday that time of the thing. There's like, I don't know, there's probably 40 or 50 trainers there, and we feed them every Tuesday once a month. And so it was that day, and I said, wow, they're going to love this, because I know how they crave like no carbs and lots of green, lots of protein. There was chicken thighs with a Persian marinade that were grilled on these big kebabs. They looked amazing. So I took all the pictures of the food, and I said, call the guy that's delivering. I want to see the face when this walks in the door. But I forgot to mention the face part. I said, tell him to take a picture. I want to see when. So I get this long text with all the pictures of the food that I just taken. And he didn't get the people, so I didn't want to embarrass him. So I said, golly, I really didn't communicate that very clearly. But I'll go to the gym tomorrow and ask them. And when I walk into Gainesville, they always come and say, oh my God, this was good, this was good. They love it. They're very appreciative. Another customer that's like, you always patting you on the back saying good job. But yeah, it is the people's faces that keep us motivated.
So that's going to segue real nicely into culture. So I thought that was a great story because you were so anxious to really see what your company had produced for people.
I wanted that feedback I was talking about.
Exactly.
And I wanted a piece of it myself, and I want to be able to show it to the chefs who never get out of the kitchen and to the people that are in the offices that process the paperwork on it, not just the driver that went there and saw, you know.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about culture, and you started your company by yourself, and then you grew to one, and now how many employees? Ish?
And we're in season right now, full season, so we're always hiring if anybody knows anybody. And so we go up to like 50 to 60 in high season, and then we'll do temps on those hot weekends, like the second weekend of December. October, we just had a 68% growth spurt. I'm bragging because we've never had that in my entire 20 years. I don't know what happened. The hurricane came, and the hurricane brought us a lot of business. September's generally slower, but because of the hurricane, we fed Cox and we fed GRU and fed all these people that were doing rescue and first responder stuff. So we had a record September, and I think we were just high from it. We worked a lot of hours, a lot of all nights. We pulled 12 all-night shifts in a row, 12 in a row, guys.
Wow. No
going home, mattresses on the floor kind of thing. We cooked all night and we cooked all day, and we kept feeding all these guys that were doing the repairing of the lines. And then it went right into October with the 68% growth, so nobody on my teams had a day off in almost 2 months. And that we're committed to that. We get Thanksgiving, we take 4 or 5 days off. So
how do you build that culture? Because I kind of have my own perception of how that happens. You're very
infectious. How do you get them to be committed?
I mean, how could you not follow your?
I'm committed. I just don't accept anything else.
And they don't last if they don't, right? But let's step back for a second. So do you have any programs? Do you systematically have bonus structures, fun?
We have all
what kind of fun things do you do around the work environment?
Well, we're party people, so we have a lot of it. So we have a really strong culture of. It starts with that sort of philosophy of exceeding the customer's expectations every single time. Not letting it get boring or. What is it, like you get complacent? That's just not allowed, and they know that. If I were to take y'all right now and walk in the building and they didn't know you were coming, they would be super enthusiastic and super like, come on in, let me show you what we do, and they're smiling, and you would say, where do you find these people? Well, they don't always walk in the door that way. It's my constant enthusiasm, my management team's constant training enthusiasm, and we never let it settle. It never gets complacent. It's not easy. It's hard to keep that instilled. And when you get 5 or 6 new people, to get them into that mode before they go out and meet the customers and look bored to them. That's just.
What do you see as your greatest threats to your business? What are the greatest threats?
It's difficult to find people that want to work that hard anymore. So the labor force is a threat to me, good solid threat. We're loading trucks all hours of the day and night, kind of like the moving guys over there. we load it, we take it over to somebody's house or business, we unload it, and 3 hours later we load it back in and bring it back, and it's 2 a.m. and we got to unload it, polish it, clean it, put it away because it's going back out in about 45 minutes. And it's just this intense amount of work. It's weird hours. We start at 3 or 4 a.m. every day. We go till we're done. And most of the time the building never empties. It's stuff coming in and going out. So it's hard to clean because it's always been in use. So there's this, it's a really dreadful feeling of like, God, this never ends. So you have to really keep everybody excited. So finding people that want to go, hey, I want to do that for,
We have a culinary
Not
arts
happening.
school here. Does that help feed into your system at all?
No.
No? Okay.
I love.
I thought that was a setup question.
I
that would've
love
been
that
the
program,
opposite.
and I believe that it's a
Uh-huh.
great program, but I've yet to have success
Is
using
that
that
right?
program. I'm being
Well,
honest.
Yeah.
This is a thing where you're
Where do you find your labor force then? Where's the
friends
number one?
of friends, word of mouth.
Uh-huh.
It's a frenetic, intense, people that are fight or flight, love high energy, want to be constantly stimulated and motivated, and they don't get tired. People that are like EMT, those people work
Right.
great for firefighters. People that like that intensity. Women who've had 5 kids, so this is nothing to them, like that can juggle 18 things at one time and be on the phone and ironing and all at once.
Right.
That's so we look for those, but there's not a whole lot of them. It's the population for that is really getting slim. So they come in and we of course tell them all this, but then they get the first 3 days and then they don't come back. That happens a lot
Right.
because it's too intense.
So how would you define success in your, not so much for you and your company, but for an entrepreneur? How would you, what's the easiest way
for
to say,
a
wow,
entrepreneur.
to say, gosh, I've made it. Like, there's, quite honestly, is like, where's the tipping point where you really have a company? Is it where you get a business license, or is it where you have a customer? Is it where you've hit
Where you have
profitability?
sustainable customers.
Sustainable? So is that
because they really appreciate what you do,
Mhm.
and you treating them as an individual.
So that's
who-
the definition when you really have a company. Sustainable customer base.
I don't know if I had to like write that in a biography, I'd put that, but right now that feels
gonna
like,
quote it.
oh God. It feels like when it's sustainable because they're coming back and they're coming back and you feel so confident that you've got something you can hold on to.
Right.
And you no longer feel like you're questioning whether you can make it or not. And it's not really about money, and it's a little bit about deep fulfillment, happiness, is you still wake up and like to do it, which I do. It's I really find that odd. It's hard to work that hard and go, I still want to do some more of it. I mean, there are days though.
Yeah. So we've heard some great evolutions
I'm
to
getting
your
excited
company.
myself. I mean, I'm all like wanting. I'm gonna go
So I'm
back
not
and
going to
do
be
some
Debbie
more.
Downer here, but I want to hear some of the struggles behind the scenes. I heard the employee struggle, but pick a moment in time where you do something different.
I get excited easy, so I have a tendency to diversify real easy, and get distracted with other areas of the business, because I read this book in the 90s, and I remember like thinking, this sounds perfect. This is me. And it was like, if there's another industry that aligns with yours, like flowers, invitations, and banquet halls, and then don't give that business to the competitor.
Right.
You should take it on. It was something like that. And so I just kept living that lie for a long time, and I diversified so much that I had too much crap, and it was too heavy, and it was too much responsibility, too many bills, too many people to manage, and I didn't get in the business to manage people, but that's what it ended up being, managing all these people and all this paperwork. So I would keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
If I could do it
So I
again.
wrote it down. It says stay in your lane.
Okay.
And I wanted to talk about that
Okay.
because the restaurant, the reason I wrote it down is when you start talking about flowers and all those things, and I am one who's often talked about what do you do really well, and what can you monetize, meaning what can you stay profitable with, and what can you keep the customer. Now sometimes you have threats to that. So somebody may come in, your competitor may say, you know what, you're having to do all of those things, where they're only doing the catering part, but I'm going to do all of it for you. And
Because my business is not about food. It's about service.
presentation and
It's about
feeling
service and people.
Yep,
All
right.
of that, you can totally, those deviled eggs could have forgot the salt,
Okay.
And the chicken could be overcooked, and the sweet potatoes could not be all the way cooked as well. That's happened. And we could be 5 minutes late. But if the guy delivering it looks sharp, acts sharp, treats the people with respect, engages with them, appreciates them genuinely, they forget about all that. And I learned that really early. So we put a lot of energy into our people, and we let the food kind of
So is that your
take
lane?
care of itself. Yeah.
Customer service?
Yeah. That's my lane.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
funny that
very
you can build a
interesting way of looking at it.
multi-million-dollar out of.
Right.
It's really, if that's all I could do, that'd be great. But food is perishable, and it changes with humidity. It changes, gets rumbled around in the van,
Yeah.
and the eggs don't look the same when they get there as they did in the kitchen. So you got all that stuff, logistical stuff. But if the guy is driving the truck and taking it up the stairs, has integrity, and knows my business philosophy inside and out, then he'll take care of the tumbled over deviled eggs and the chewy chicken or whatever.
So this is a kind of a new question because I get caught up in this myself. So all of my employees come and put their, crown on my shoulder, and I'm sure a lot of your employees are leaning on you. Who do you lean on?
Well, I didn't lean on anybody for the longest time. I was the pillar of mechanical, machine-like. I just pushed through it, and I didn't give myself a whole lot of room to do that kind of stuff.
Is there any inspirational individuals out there or mentors?
Yeah,
or?
they showed up like crazy. I have one gentleman that's in his 80s that came by the first week I opened and looked in my window and knocked, and I thought, what is, and I was making homemade ice cream when I first opened. And he said, you need a commercial machine for that. I said, I had three machines from Walmart going on the back steps of my little place. And he went and bought one and just put it in, gave it to me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, he wants something, but he didn't. He's been doing that for me now for 20 years. And he's now older, retired, moved to the mountains, and we still talk on the phone. He still mentors me, and I do that for other people now. So it's those, I could tell you 100 stories like that where people just showed up with things like they just saw my passion and hard work and were like, you can't do this right now, but take it and pay me later when you can. And I honored that and paid it forward, and that was huge.
So one last question before we go to questions. What would you take the same path you've taken?
To be honest, I might pick something that's a little less labor intensive. If I'm being honest, I love it. I still love it. And I like that it's never boring because I'm a high energy person, but there are days when it just feels like one more truck to be loaded. I don't have to load them anymore, so that's great. But it's just too many logistical things, so it's overwhelming a lot of days. So I think sometimes about having a simpler life, and that's very attractive to me. So if I had it to do again and I know what I know now, I might pick something that's, or keep it much simpler. Interesting. But now that we're doing it and it's productive, we kind of.
Well, I have to tell you that there's a thing called TOMA, which is top of mind awareness. And so there's TOMA ratings given to companies all the time. They'll take surveys and they say, name the top 3, I don't know, cars, the top 3 attorneys, the top 3 popsicles, I don't know, whatever. And so they get your TOMA rating based on the top of mind awareness, your favorite charity, your favorite whatever. And then advertising a lot of times changes that. They'll say, hey, we'll raise your TOMA rating where people will think of you more often. That's what advertising does in one aspect. But TOMA ratings also go where you might have, like, have you ever heard of Enron? It's like, yeah, I've heard of Enron. Is it good or bad? Well, it's bad, right? Have you heard of American Red Cross? They both have similar TOMA ratings, right? But one of them has a really big thumbs up and the other's a big thumbs down. The moral of the story is, I have to tell you that if there was a TOMA rating done for your company, it would be off the chart, very positive. I've heard over the years, and I've been associated with a lot of different charities that use you, a lot of different companies that use you, and obviously if companies like Gainesville Health and Fitness, as an example, is using you on a regular basis, it speaks volumes to how successful you've been in this community. Starting from nothing, starting with one vehicle, an idea, and then just having the tenacity that you've had to go out there and really beat the bushes and to build something that has such a great positive mental image for people who don't even really know you is a huge compliment to you, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
So,
That's really,
yeah.
feels really good to hear that. I mean,
Yeah.
tenacity kind of like sparked a little something.
Yeah.
And I went, God, it was a lot of tenacity, yeah.
I can see it, and
Yeah.
it's genuine. So with that, we're going to open it up for questions. Yes?
I'm going to be first. So you mentioned something about labor is your biggest threat. Why would the laborer not be interested in working if he likes the job and if he is or she is getting paid well? What I'm asking is that if they're really liking what they're doing and if they're getting paid what they really want, why would they not be interested?
Now, they don't get paid. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think it's not about money, what they get paid. That doesn't drive them. It's a nice thing, but the drive is that satisfaction thing. The ones that do load those trucks and cook all hours of the day and night, they do that. But the people I have to pick from is so much smaller than it was when I started, because it seems like people want an easier way now. They want to do something from their computer, or they want to do something from home, or they want to do something they can have the weekends off and go to the football games. They don't want to come in and slave during the game. They want to go to the game. And I'm like, or every weekend, we're there every weekend. And that's really hard for people to commit to that, or to have a huge force where you only have to work 1 weekend a month. And then I don't get enough consistency to train them in the way that we think, if they're just part-time.
I've often jokingly said the worst job is the guy who cuts the lawn, because on the good days he's working, and on the bad days it's raining and they're at home, they can't do anything. And so I think there's probably a dynamic to that. There's somewhat of a lifestyle that you want to live that kind of conflicts with the hours that you probably offer. So.
A couple of weeks ago I went to an event, and we were setting up a huge event in someone's backyard. There were 5 big tents, and it was really intense. All the wiring and the lighting and the air and the DJ, and it was just this customer wanted all the wires hidden where you couldn't see anything in the yard. So that was the day before the actual party, and I just went because all the supervisors were busy, and they said, "Hey, can you lend us a hand and come out?" And I know this customer too. He's a brain surgeon, literally, and he's very precise about how he wants things done in his yard for his event. So I went to just be there in case anybody didn't really understand how important this was. I couldn't lose this client. So they said, "Hey, this customer, can you just go stand in while the tents are being erected and everything?" And I'm watching it, and I'm watching these guys enjoy this, and I'm thinking to myself, we're unloading 5 trucks of stuff in the hot sun.
Right.
I'm not unloading, but I'm standing there, and I'm hot, and I'm not even moving anything. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm watching them actually enjoy this. They're rolling these big whiskey barrels down there and setting up tons of chairs. And we're on somebody's big, huge backyard that slants down. The grass is like this thick. Feels like you're walking in mud.
Right.
And we're dressed for it and everything. We got the Gatorade and all that. But I did everything I could that day in my power to make them feel appreciated, to take care of them, to space it out, and to guide that so that I could have them last all day, because this was going to take an all-day thing. And I never saw anybody complain. We were sweating. It was not a fun job. But they looked like they had fun, and afterwards we all rode back in the trucks together, and nobody was complaining. And I even said to myself, I don't think even I could do this anymore. So there are people that do it, but we fight over those 8 or 10 really good guys that do it when we really need 20.
Right.
There aren't 20.
Right.
They're just not, they don't exist.
What else? Yes?
It's like in your business, you have when you say I serve food, and then you start oh yeah, but they need flowers, and then you start doing flowers and sound and illumination. Seems like you have a bunch of small companies under the umbrella of the
Yeah.
service. So how do you have kind of an organization? How do I ask it?
Structure.
Is there a big company and then small companies be running parallel, or it's just
We run it under one company. I've tried it that way, and having extra companies and extra checking accounts, extra tax returns becomes exponentially, stupidly expensive to me. So I have tried so that you can let one company phase out, or you can write off profit of one company. it's great in theory, but it's a lot of crap to manage and payrolls for each company, and then the IRS doesn't like it when you have one payroll under another. I've learned all this the hard way, and so for me, I have one. I'm now down to one umbrella company and one company on solid, and it just makes everything streamlined in the bookkeeping department. And to me, it's like we call it one-stop shopping. That's really corny, but it just speaks the best for if you come to me to order 1,000 box lunches for your hike at Lake Alice at UF, then I want to sell you the lunch, the waters and drinks for all day, and the Gatorades. I want the tables and the linens so that everything looks pretty. I want the staff. I want the garbage can contract. I want the cleanup process, and I want to also send the team that's going to take care of this so you guys can focus on your hiking day. And this just happened, so this is fresh on my mind. And people just are astounded that you can do all that, and I don't have to do it, and they just sign. I mean, they don't want to think about all that crap anymore. Before we had more time. Now nobody's got time, so time and selling your service is really the biggest.
So let me ask this question a little bit differently. Do you have employees that specifically focus on just the floral component?
Yeah.
Okay.
But some of us have, good question, because.
Hey, one, but this is our 7th one, and I finally got one good
because
question.
It allows the employees to, and I think this answers both of y'all's questions, is a girl comes in and says, I'm really good at flowers, I really want this job, and she's really good at flowers, and she does it for a year, but then she's over in the linen department going, God, I really like doing the design work, and can I work, and so before I know it, she's head linen girl and not doing the flowers anymore, or she's doing both, because she really likes both.
Yeah.
The guy that applied to be a chef is not doing so great, and before I know it, he's over in setups running the warehouse, and so everybody's always changing because there's so many components. They get to find the job, or they get burnt out on one job and they move. So my lead event planner just moved up to general manager, and my girl that was managing my cold food department just moved into laundry, just like in the last 2 weeks. And I see that happen, and it just makes me feel fulfilled that they got to stay in the company and keep with those same ground rules that we all run with, but they're not getting bored, and they're getting to stimulate some new growth in their own stuff. And it also gives you a handful more people that really know the whole company and not just one little segment of it, you know.
Yeah, I think that was like.
Were you looking for technical, like how do you run the?
I think that's like maybe that's following the question, like how do we empower people, you know?
Uh-huh. And cross-training and that kind of thing.
Cross-training is really important because you don't know when the flower lady's not going to call in sick.
Right.
She called in sick today, as a matter of fact. She has 3 kids.
I'm good at it.
She couldn't come in, so somebody else had to do it. So you better have somebody that kind of knows. But it's expensive to have everybody know everything, but then a little bit about everything is pretty cool, you know. I'm always there to fill in. That's what I get called in when it really hits the fan. They come knocking on my door.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe a nuts and bolts question. How did you finance the growth of your company over the years and decades?
You know, I'm a creative right brain. I don't do finance very well, so
Profits versus
profits, my
bank
own
loans?
personal money. I've taken, you know, I have people in my company that make more money than me, and I choose to not bleed it anymore, bleed from it, and so I just do what I enjoy, and I let somebody else handle some things. And so over the years, many times, as I'm sure you've done, you sacrifice something, or you know, if I make a big fat check, I just go buy something new for the company with it because it brings so much joy to me and everybody else there. I don't think that's always healthy, but for me it's worked. And so investing back in, it just would come back out later. And so there's a constant of putting it back in of my own money. And then I've borrowed money a few times, not too much though. We generally grew at a pace where we made some, we put it back. Every time we'd get a big contract, we'd put some more, and so it just kind of had that gradual growth. But there have been times you could go to the bank in the early days and just borrow $100,000 and nobody said anything. They're like, you could sign and walk out with a $100,000 check, and that didn't happen anymore. Not as easy as that.
Not anymore. To that point, one other question: have you ever had like venture capital or private people or anything like that? You just shoestringed it yourself?
Yeah, a little bit here and there, but not. I never went out and looked for it. I had those people that were always, there's always a gifting person that's really saw it and would want to just go, I want to be a part of this. And of course, when they get inside, they go, "This is a lot of work." They kind of, but they didn't mind. They felt like it was a solid investment.
Couple more questions. Yep. We'll go ahead.
Actually, two.
Oh, that's the final two.
All right.
I'm just teasing.
So you mentioned that sometimes your employees will pull all-nighters. Do you have a day shift and night shift, or it's just like you're here for this event until the event is done?
That's a good question. It depends on, if it's the second week of December, you pull triples. If it's a normal week, I just said we had a huge growth in October, so everybody just did whatever shifts they required. But on a normal, when we're not having major, hurricane or October or Christmas, we try to put it into day and night shifts. But this is a tricky business. The food business is, I don't know how many of you guys have worked in it, but it's known for, like, if I don't feel like showing up, like the new guy that hadn't been ingrained with our philosophy will just not show up. And so we have to hire extra and be ready for that padding. We also we have a lot of really awesome people that'll go, my brother's not doing anything with, and he'll work those 1 or 2 days, and sometimes he'll end up staying on. But I don't know, that's we don't intentionally go, but during the hurricane, half of my staff needed to be at home taking care of their own problems, so we whittled it down to the 8 or 12 of us that were left, and we threw up the air mattresses and said, everybody's here committed. We fed them and took care of them and tried to just make it worth their while. And then we had a big party at the end, and I went to, I took care of them. I went and got what they needed to at the end to make sure they knew I appreciated them.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, your follow-up question?
Second question was, you said that you mentioned that service is your philosophy to your customers. It seems that service is also your philosophy towards your employees as well, which in turn just adds enormous value to your business, because it's not just a place they go to work, it's a place where they belong.
Right.
Culture that they're part of.
Yeah.
Would you
Family,
agree with that?
yes. Yes, it's a family of people that depend highly on each other being effective, because the cogs of the wheel are so many. Like, if I'm in a wedding and somebody just plunked down 20 or 30 grand for a wedding, I mean, people spend ungodly amounts of money on a 3-hour wedding. But if I don't have the corkscrew, and the dad that just wrote me that check is the first person in line at the bar, and I can't open the wine, it's completely going to override everything else there. So the person who pulls the serving utensils has an amazing, important job. So does the person who's cooking, to the person who's filling up the gas and making sure I can tell you that we've had horror stories of we go to get in and there's no gas on a Sunday, I'm gone, there's no credit card. So we have systems for everything, but sometimes you have a new guy or whatever. So there's so many cogs that have to happen to pull that event off, that if you don't have it hooked up as a family who trusts and counts on each other, this job won't work. So I have to, it's my job to empower my management to create that environment before anything else. Before we talk about what's in those deviled eggs, that is not important. It's important only lastly. Like, it really, I understand that not only is nobody else in this town getting the customer service, if I know who my competitors are, and also you guys eat out and go to the bank, go to Publix,
Right.
You know what customer service is like these days. It's just not on everybody's, they say it is, but it's not. And so for us, I'm like, we'll exceed it so much that we'll be the go-to.
Rolled over.
Yeah. So it is, the people and the customer
Longest
service.
employee? How long has the longest employee been with you?
Gary, 20 years, all since I opened.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I have a lot of women who've been there 10 or 12 years.
Uh-huh.
I have a lot of chefs that have been there that long.
Okay.
If they go, it's usually because of a physical problem,
Uh-huh.
or they've got a spouse that moves or something.
Uh-huh.
But then we also have our student base of people that
Yeah.
will stay through college. And then a
Right.
couple of them will stay on and become part of the management team. And then some of them go away, and then they come back. And that's always
Yeah.
beautiful. I've had dozens of them. They go away, and they say, I'm graduating, or I'm moving on to my real career or whatever. And then they go to St. Louis or
Yeah.
California. I can think of a bunch of them. And then they try something else. And this is addictive, because you can see
Yeah.
how inspiring and excited I get. So they come back.
One last question. Anybody new? We can do them fast. Go ahead. What's your question?
Okay, that might be a quick one.
It's
When
okay.
you're talking about management and you were saying like you had employees that were changing jobs, does that get difficult to find and manage people who are going to replace those positions?
Sometimes, but normally there's kind of somebody else in the wings
Uh-huh.
that's kind of slide in there. But occasionally a position, I have one open right now that I can't find the right person because I've got to hire for what you were just asking about for the people skills. Like, do you have the ability to fit into our team? And accounting is one of those because it's so number oriented and we're all creative people. So the person who runs the payroll and the bookkeeping and the payables and stuff usually doesn't like our fun team games and all the stuff
Right.
we do. He's like, I don't see the relevance in this. And so having somebody that can also do the paperwork side that I hate is got to be somebody that also will play the game that we play, which is very service oriented. So that position stays open when it comes open longer than anything. But the rest of them, there's usually somebody raising their hand and going, I want to do that, you know.
Okay, real quick.
So besides the healthy food and customer service, what other things makes you different from your company?
We're the only caterer. We are the only caterer that does it all. And every other caterer, you can call and get your lasagna, but you can't get the table and the linen to go with it. Yeah.
More? No? Anything else? Well, this has been a great opportunity to meet you.
Thanks,
and
Mitch.
It's been awesome.
You got me
You're-
all excited. Like,
You're
feel so
tenacious. You learned that today.
tenacious.
Yes,
Yeah,
tenacity.
still, after all
Tenacious.
this time,
Yeah. But Leah, thank you very, very much. You really do run a wonderful company, and we want to thank you for sharing that with everyone.
Thank you.
We'll be back, I guess, in January or December. January? January, we'll have another Startup Talks. We wish you a nice Thanksgiving and the whole holiday season that's ahead of you. And please, let's make sure we give a big thanks to Infinite Energy for sponsoring the food and drinks. And thank you all for coming out tonight. And to Quan and Pyle, and Aaron and everybody else who helps with this. I always mispronounce your name. And but anyways, thank you all very, very much and have a wonderful
Good
evening.
questions, guys.
We'll
Thank
see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.